Story: Millionaire husband gave his pregnant wife divorce papers as a birthday gift. He never expected what happened next. Lauren Whitmore's husband did not give her divorce papers on her birthday because he wanted closure. He gave them to her because he needed something signed before Monday. She was 7 months pregnant, seated beneath chandeliers, surrounded by people Nathan knew she would never want to cry in front of. He thought embarrassment would do the work his lawyers could not. What he did not expect was that Lauren had already begun to remember the woman she had been before marriage taught her to stop asking questions. Stay to the end, because one small contract code turns a humiliating birthday dinner into the beginning of a much larger reversal. If you enjoy stories where dignity beats revenge and details matter, subscribe and tell us what you would have done. Now imagine Nathan lifting a champagne glass while a cream envelope waits beside Lauren's cake. Friday night arrived dressed like a celebration. White roses covered the dining room. Champagne-colored candles reflected against the penthouse windows. A pianist played softly near the glass while Manhattan glittered 40 floors below. Nathan had chosen everything, even Lauren's seat. Center of the table, perfectly visible, exactly where everyone could watch her. 20 guests surrounded the birthday cake when Nathan finally stood. His mother, 2 Whitmore development executives, several family friends, people Lauren had known for years, people Nathan knew she would never want to break down in front of. Lauren rested one hand beneath her 7-month belly. Her daughter shifted gently. Nathan lifted his champagne glass. To Lauren. Everyone smiled. Lauren did too. Barely. Then Nathan placed the glass down. I have one last gift. A waiter approached carrying a cream envelope. Lauren's heartbeat slowed. Not because she was surprised. Because Audrey's warning returned immediately. Whatever he puts in front of you Friday, you sign nothing. Nathan placed the envelope beside her cake. Open it. Lauren looked at him. His dark suit was immaculate. His expression was warm enough for the room. His blue-gray eyes were not. She opened the envelope. The first page confirmed what she already feared. A divorce complaint. Behind it sat a proposed marital settlement agreement. Temporary support. Housing allowance. Confidentiality provisions. Language concerning future parenting after the baby was born. Nathan spoke softly. I want this handled respectfully. Lauren kept reading. No apology. No explanation. Only terms. Then she reached Schedule C. Her eyes moved down the page. WT 17. There it was. Nathan's real deadline hiding inside her birthday gift. A release connected to property and transaction claims had been drafted broadly enough to reach rights Lauren had never knowingly surrendered. Nathan slid a silver pen toward her. You'll be comfortable. Lauren looked at the pen. Around the table, nobody moved. One guest lowered his champagne. Another quietly lifted a phone. Nathan noticed the camera. Immediately, his voice became gentler. There's no reason to make this ugly. Lauren looked up. You plan this tonight? Nathan's smile remained fixed. I thought doing it privately, with people who care about us, would make things easier. Privately. Lauren almost laughed. 20 witnesses. A birthday cake. Phones recording. This was not privacy. It was pressure with candles around it. Nathan pushed the pen closer. Just sign it, Lauren. Her fingers touched the silver barrel. Nathan exhaled. For 1 second, relief crossed his face. He thought she had surrendered. Lauren turned back to Schedule C. Then slowly drew a circle around WT 17. Nathan's expression changed. What are you doing? Lauren placed the pen beside the papers. I received your offer. Good. I'm not accepting it. Silence fell so completely that Lauren could hear the pianist stop playing. Nathan leaned closer. Lauren. She gathered the documents. His voice dropped low enough that only she could hear. Don't embarrass yourself. There it was. The sentence he had built the entire evening around. Lauren hated confrontation. Nathan knew it. She hated people watching her cry. He knew that too. He had mistaken dignity for obedience. You have no idea what your life costs without me, he whispered. Lauren stood carefully. One hand held the papers. The other protected her daughter. Maybe I don't. Nathan stared at her. She met his eyes. But I still know what a contract costs. Lauren walked toward the private elevator. Behind her, nobody spoke. The doors opened. She stepped inside. Then her phone vibrated. An email from the trustee's office appeared across the screen. Urgent. Unauthorized collateral modification request received. Lauren read it once, then looked through the narrowing elevator doors at Nathan. His confidence was finally gone. The doors closed. Nathan had expected divorce papers to frighten his pregnant wife into signing. Instead, they had just confirmed the one thing he desperately needed her never to understand. Monday's deal still depended on her. 3 days earlier, Lauren Whitmore still believed silence could protect a marriage. She was wrong. Rain pressed against the penthouse windows while she stood alone in the kitchen, one hand beneath her 7-month belly, the other wrapped around a cup of tea that had already gone cold. Nathan had left before sunrise. No kiss. No explanation. Only a message. Early meeting. Don't wait for dinner. Lauren read it twice, then turned the phone face down. She had become very good at not asking questions. That was not who she had been when Nathan met her. Before the penthouse. Before the private cars. Before Whitmore Development became a name glowing across Manhattan construction sites. Lauren had been a corporate contract analyst. She loved details most people ignored. A missing signature. A strange date. One sentence buried on page 47 that quietly changed everything written before it. 10 years earlier, Nathan's company had been 4 employees, 2 unpaid invoices, and a borrowed office with water stains on the ceiling. Lauren had helped organize its earliest contracts. She built schedule systems, created reference codes, flagged restrictions Nathan often dismissed because he believed paperwork slowed ambition. Back then, he admired her for it. You see what everyone else misses, he used to say. Years later, admiration slowly became inconvenience. You don't need to work anymore. Then, why are you still reading that? Then, let the lawyers handle it. Finally, let me take care of you. Lauren had once heard love in those words. Now, standing inside a home that felt increasingly unfamiliar, she heard something else. Control. The baby moved beneath her palm. Lauren smiled faintly. Your father wasn't always like this, she whispered. The sentence sounded weaker outside her head. She carried her tea toward the study. Nathan had left several folders on the desk. Lauren normally would not have touched them, but one sheet had slipped halfway from a dark leather file. A project schedule. Whitmore Development Group. Her eyes moved toward the lower corner, then stopped. WT 17. Lauren's heartbeat changed. She pulled the sheet free. WT 17. Lauren remembered the code immediately. Years earlier, she had created that internal classification for assets carrying third-party restrictions. Assets Nathan could use only under specific conditions. Lauren slowly opened the bottom drawer of a storage cabinet. Inside were documents she had kept legally for years. Their first apartment lease, old tax records, early company agreements, and a thin folder containing papers from her mother's family trust. Lauren found it. WT 17. The original agreement felt strangely heavy in her hands. She sat down. Read once. Then again. Her eyes stopped on one clause. Any material modification involving the secured property required written notice to the trustee and beneficiary. Lauren was the beneficiary. No one had notified her. She looked back at Nathan's project schedule. Near the bottom was a transaction date. Monday. For days away. Her birthday was Friday. The private elevator chimed. Lauren looked up. Nathan entered the penthouse, rain darkening the shoulders of his tailored coat. He stopped when he saw her in the study. Then his blue-gray eyes moved toward the folder in her hands. Only for a second, but Lauren noticed. What are you doing? His voice was calm. Too calm. Lauren closed the folder, looking for an old insurance document. Nathan studied her, then smiled. Leave that stuff alone. You should be resting. There it was again. Not concern. Instruction. Lauren nodded. Nathan relaxed and walked upstairs. She waited until his footsteps disappeared, then reopened WT 17. 4 days from now, Nathan expected Lauren to celebrate her birthday. But for the first time, she wondered whether the party had ever been planned for her at all. Lauren did not sleep that night. At 2:17 a.m., Manhattan was silent behind the glass, but WT 17 seemed louder than the city. She sat alone at the dining table wearing one of Nathan's oversized sweaters, the old trust agreement open beneath a pool of warm light. Written notice. Trustee approval. Beneficiary consent. 3 requirements. Lauren had received none of them. She read the clause again, then checked Nathan's project schedule. Monday. The date stared back at her. For days after the transaction sheet had appeared in his study. 3 days after her birthday. Lauren placed both hands over her belly. Their daughter moved slowly beneath her skin. For years, Lauren had treated the family trust as little more than something her mother had arranged before she died. It was not a secret fortune. It did not make Lauren wealthy. The trust held property rights her mother wanted protected, and years earlier Nathan had asked permission to use certain interests connected to that property while Whitmore Development was still fighting to grow. Lauren had agreed, carefully, with restrictions. She could still remember Nathan laughing when she insisted on precise language. "You really think I'm going to steal from your family?" Lauren had smiled. "No, I think contracts exist because circumstances change." Back then, he kissed her forehead. Now the memory felt different. At 8:03 the next morning, Lauren called Audrey Sloan. Audrey had worked with Lauren on commercial agreements years earlier. She was 44, practical, composed, and almost impossible to impress. "Tell me exactly what you found." By 9:30, Lauren was sitting inside Audrey's downtown office, while traffic moved 40 floors below them. The WT-17 agreement lay between 2 cups of untouched coffee. Audrey read every page. Once, then again. Lauren watched her expression become increasingly still. "That bad?" Audrey pointed to the consent provision. "Were you notified about any change to the collateral?" "No." "Did you sign anything?" "No." "Did the trustee?" "I don't know." Audrey picked up the phone. 20 minutes later, they had an answer. No trustee approval had been issued. Lauren felt cold despite the sunlight pouring through the windows. "So what is Nathan doing?" "That's what we need to establish." Audrey reviewed the project schedule Lauren had found, then cross-checked financing documents and transaction records already connected to Whitmore Development. Piece by piece, the shape emerged. Nathan was preparing to sell a major stake in Whitmore Development to a private investment firm. The closing was scheduled for Monday. Lauren stared at the date. Her birthday was Friday. Audrey leaned closer to the documents. "If WT-17 is included in this collateral package, the buyer needs the consent issue resolved." "And if Nathan told them it was already resolved?" Audrey said nothing. She turned another page. There, beneath the transaction representations, was language stating that all required approvals had been obtained or would be delivered before closing. Lauren's pulse began pounding. "I never agreed to this." "I know. And he knows I didn't." Audrey looked at her. "Yes." Lauren thought about Nathan's sudden interest in organizing her birthday dinner. The white roses. The guest list. His insistence that Friday night be special. Something inside her dropped. "He needs something from me before Monday." Audrey studied her carefully. Lauren's phone vibrated. "Nathan, Friday will be special. We need a fresh start." Lauren read the message. Once. Twice. Audrey saw it too. For several seconds, neither woman spoke. Then Audrey closed the WT-17 folder. "Whatever Nathan puts in front of you Friday, you sign nothing." Lauren looked through the office window at the city below. She had spent months wondering why her husband seemed so eager to move away from her. Now she understood something worse. Nathan was not trying to leave before the deal was finished. He was trying to make sure Lauren left before she realized the deal still needed her. By the time Friday night arrived again in Lauren's memory, she no longer saw the dinner as a celebration that had gone wrong. She saw it as a deadline Nathan had dressed in white roses. That distinction mattered. Audrey had not told her to accuse him of fraud, stop his company from operating, or demand money for a signature. She had told Lauren to do something far simpler. Do not waive a right you do not understand. So when Nathan pushed the silver pen toward her and washed her hand, Lauren did not need a speech. She circled WT-17, declined the proposal, and left with the documents. The emotional pain came later, inside the elevator, when there was no audience. Her knees weakened. She pressed her palm beneath her belly and let herself cry for the marriage she had hoped could still be repaired. The baby moved. Lauren breathed slowly until the doors opened. Then the trustee's urgent email appeared on her phone, confirming that a request involving the protected property interests had been submitted without the approvals the agreement required. Lauren read the message twice. She did not feel powerful. She felt certain. Nathan had not simply chosen a cruel moment to ask for a divorce. The settlement and the transaction schedule were connected, and the connection ran through a right bearing her name. The next morning, Audrey helped Lauren separate emotion from action. First, they sent a narrow written notice. Lauren had not consented to any material WT-17 modification, and no one should represent otherwise. Second, They asked that the property issue be handled separately from the marital settlement. Third, they preserved the birthday packet exactly as Nathan had delivered it. No threats. No social media. No call to reporters. Lauren wanted the record corrected, not Nathan publicly destroyed. That choice became important later because it made every consequence trace back to the documents rather than to revenge. When Nathan called and accused her of holding his deal hostage, Lauren answered with the same sentence each time. I am not stopping your transaction. I am refusing to let my consent be invented. By Sunday evening, Halcyon's counsel had acknowledged the notice. The trustee had confirmed that approval remained outstanding, and Nathan's Monday closing was no longer routine. Lauren slept only 4 hours that night. Still, it was the deepest sleep she had had in months. For the first time, she was no longer trying to guess what her husband meant. She was reading what he had signed. By Saturday morning, Lauren no longer believed the divorce was the worst thing Nathan had planned. The documents spread across Audrey Sloan's conference table told a colder story. Dates, signatures, closing conditions, numbers that turned a marriage into strategy. Lauren sat beside the window wearing a soft gray sweater, her golden blonde hair loosely tied behind her shoulders. One hand rested over her belly while Audrey arranged the papers in chronological order. Start with Monday, Audrey said. She pushed forward the transaction schedule. Whitmore Development was preparing to sell a major ownership stake to Halcyon Equity Partners, a private investment firm financing Nathan's next expansion. The deal was enormous. More important, it depended on representations concerning the collateral package, including WT-17. Lauren followed the highlighted language slowly. So if I had signed the settlement last night, you could have released or weakened claims connected to rights you hadn't been properly informed about. Lauren stared at the page. The birthday cake flashed through her mind. The candles. Nathan's mother watching. The silver pin beside her hand. He had not expected her to read. He had expected her to react. Audrey opened another folder. This came from the trustee's office this morning. Inside was a copy of a recent request seeking confirmation for a modification involving the protected property interests. Nathan's team had submitted it days earlier. Lauren's name appeared in the consent section. Blank. She looked up. He knew my approval was missing. Yes. And he still represented that the approvals would be available. Audrey nodded. Lauren leaned back slowly. For months, Nathan had behaved as though their marriage were simply dying. Late meetings. Short answers. Separate bedrooms. No arguments because he barely stayed long enough to have one. Lauren had searched for emotional explanations. Maybe he no longer loved her. Maybe pregnancy had changed them. Maybe she had become someone he could no longer see. But Nathan had been thinking in deadlines. Audrey placed another document in front of her. A transaction checklist. Beside one line, a handwritten notation had been copied into the file. Lauren's settlement. Before Monday. Lauren's throat tightened. No wife. No mother of his child. Just Lauren's settlement. A condition to clear. I thought this was about him wanting me gone, Lauren whispered. Audrey looked at her. It may be. Lauren shook her head. No, not like this. Her eyes returned to the checklist. He needed me gone in a very specific way. Not angry. Not suspicious. Not represented by counsel. Signed. Quiet. Finished before Monday. Lauren's phone vibrated. Nathan. She did not answer. A message appeared seconds later. We should talk before this becomes a problem. Lauren read it. Then another arrived. You're confused about documents you haven't worked with in years. Something inside her became very still. That sentence hurt more than the insult at dinner. Because years earlier, Nathan had praised the same skill he was now trying to erase. You see what everyone else misses. Lauren turned the phone toward Audrey. Audrey read the messages. Do you want to respond? Lauren thought for a moment. Then typed. I have not consented to any WT-17 modification. Please communicate through counsel. She pressed send. 3 dots appeared almost immediately, then vanished. Audrey opened her laptop. What happens now? Lauren asked. We make sure every party relying on your consent knows the truth. No threats. No. No trying to destroy the transaction. No. Audrey looked directly at her. We correct the record. At 10:16 a.m., formal notice went to the trustee. At 10:19, to counsel connected to the transaction. At 10:23, acknowledgement arrived. Lauren watched each confirmation appear. Delivered. Received. Under review. Nothing exploded. No alarms sounded. Manhattan continued moving outside the glass. But somewhere across the city, Nathan Whitmore was preparing for Monday morning with one assumption already collapsing. For years, he had believed Lauren's silence meant she did not understand. He was about to discover that silence and ignorance had never been the same thing. Monday morning began with champagne on ice. At 9:07 a.m., Nathan Whitmore stepped into the 52nd floor conference room believing the hardest part was already behind him. Dark navy suit, silver cufflinks, perfect tie. The skyline stretched behind him like proof that ambition had worked. Halcyon Equities attorneys sat across the polished walnut table. Bank representatives opened laptops. Whitmore Development's legal team arranged signature pages into neat stacks. 3 unopened champagne bottles waited beside the closing folders. Nathan smiled. "Let's finish this." Nobody smiled back. His eyes moved toward his lead attorney. "What happened?" A woman from Halcyon's legal team placed a document on the table. "We received notice concerning WT-17. Nathan's expression remained controlled. Only his jaw changed. "This is a family matter." "It is a consent matter," she replied. She pushed the notice toward him. "Beneficiary consent, not provided. Trustee approval, not provided. Collateral modification, disputed." Nathan barely looked at the page. "My wife is confused." No one answered. He turned toward his own counsel. "Tell them." The attorney hesitated. "We represented that the required approvals would be available before closing. They will be. Mrs. Whitmore's counsel has stated otherwise." The room became painfully quiet. Nathan looked around the table. Men who had returned his calls within minutes for months were suddenly studying documents. One Halcyon attorney removed the signature pages from his folder. Another closed a laptop. Nathan's voice sharpened. "You're delaying a transaction worth hundreds of millions because my pregnant wife sent an email." The Halcyon attorney looked directly at him. "We're delaying because a person whose consent may be required says she never gave it." Across Manhattan, Lauren sat beside Audrey in a smaller conference room. No champagne, no executives, only WT-17, a glass of water, and Lauren's phone face down between them. At 9:23, it rang. "Nathan." Lauren watched his name flash once, twice. Audrey said quietly, "You don't have to answer." Lauren picked up. "Nathan, what did you do?" His voice was low enough to sound calm. Lauren knew him well enough to hear the fury underneath it. "I corrected the record. You contacted people involved in my company. I told them I never consented. You stopped the closing." "No." Lauren looked at the old trust agreement. "You stopped yourself." Silence. Then Nathan's voice returned harder. "Do you understand what this could cost me?" Lauren closed her eyes. Cost. The apartment. The settlement. Her future. Even her silence had always been assigned a value. "Nothing," she said. "What?" "I didn't cost you anything." She opened her eyes. "I only asked them to read what you signed." Nathan said nothing. In the closing room, Halcyon's attorneys were already gathering documents. The champagne remained sealed. At 9:31, the transaction was formally postponed pending review of the disputed collateral rights and required approvals. Not canceled, not destroyed. Paused. One word. But everyone in that room understood what it meant. Nathan stood beside the table as months of preparation stopped moving forward. "This isn't over," he said into the phone. Lauren's voice remained quiet. "I know." She ended the call. Her hand trembled once, then stopped. Audrey slid another document toward her. A request for expedited financial disclosure. Lauren stared at it. "Now what?" "Now," Audrey said, "we find out what else he expected you never to read." Lauren looked through the window at Manhattan. Friday night. Nathan had put a pen in front of his pregnant wife because he believed humiliation would make her sign without asking questions. 3 days later, a room filled with bankers, investors, and attorneys refused to sign anything because Lauren had asked one. For years, Nathan's power had depended on people trusting what he put on paper. By Monday morning, everyone had finally started reading. The delay also forced everyone to slow down. Halcyon did not abandon Whitmore Development. The banks did not run. Employees did not lose their jobs. Transaction counsel simply refused to close around an unresolved consent issue. Over the next several weeks, Nathan's lawyers produced financial information required in the divorce, while targeted third-party requests established the sequence surrounding WT-17. Audrey repeatedly reminded Lauren that a business deadline was not automatically misconduct, and that an unfavorable settlement proposal was not proof of fraud. What mattered was disclosure, the actual language of the trust documents, and whether anyone had represented that Lauren agreed when she had not. That careful distinction made the later evidence stronger. A closing checklist showed Lauren's settlement and the access to WT-17 rights being tracked before Monday. Emails showed the domestic documents were expected to be completed before closing. None contained a theatrical confession. They did not need one. Dates could tell a story without adjectives. Lauren spent the waiting period preparing for the birth of her daughter, touring a smaller apartment, and accepting that the life she had planned was ending. Some nights, she still missed Nathan. That embarrassed her until Audrey told her grief did not invalidate judgment. You can love what was real and still protect yourself from what is happening now, she said. Lauren carried that sentence into court. 3 weeks later, the courtroom was quieter than Nathan Whitmore's closing room had been. No champagne, no skyline, no assistants waiting outside with congratulations. Only fluorescent light, dark wood, attorneys, and documents that did not care how expensive Nathan's suit was. The hearing concerned financial disclosure, preservation of disputed marital assets, and representations connected to the stalled transaction. Lauren entered beside Audrey Sloan. Her pregnancy was more visible now. She moved carefully, one hand beneath her belly, golden blonde hair pulled back loosely from a face that looked tired but composed. Nathan watched her sit, then looked away. Audrey opened the first binder. Your Honor, documents produced through expedited discovery and targeted third-party requests clarify why Mrs. Whitmore was presented with the settlement when she was. Nathan's attorney rose. We object to characterizing routine negotiation strategy as misconduct. The judge looked over his glasses. Then the documents should speak for themselves. Audrey placed the first email on the monitor. Get Lauren's settlement executed before Monday's closing. Lauren had never seen that exact sentence before. Her stomach tightened. Audrey displayed another. Give it to her at the birthday dinner. She won't make a scene in front of everyone. Silence. Nathan's fingers stopped moving. The next message appeared. She's 7 months pregnant. She's exhausted. Keep the conversation short and get the signature. Lauren lowered her eyes. Not because she was ashamed. Because suddenly the white roses made sense again. The guests. The cake. The phones. Nathan had not merely predicted her discomfort. He had designed around it. Audrey changed the screen. Schedule C, WT-17. Then the original trust agreement. Written notice required. Trustee approval required. Beneficiary consent required. 3 conditions. None completed before the planned closing. Nathan's attorney stood again. Mrs. Whitmore's consent was expected. The transaction documents contemplated obtaining outstanding approvals before completion. The judge turned toward Nathan. Did your wife agree to provide that consent? Nathan hesitated. We had discussed supporting the company historically. That was not my question. Nathan shifted. No, Audrey placed the transaction representation beside the birthday settlement. The release language overlapped with rights connected to the disputed collateral. Nathan leaned toward his attorney and whispered. Then he spoke. This is being made to look far more sinister than it was. Lauren looked at him. For years, that tone had ended arguments. Calm, certain, almost bored. The voice of a man explaining reality to everyone else. It was a misunderstanding, Nathan continued. The judge glanced at the emails. Mr. Whitmore, then help me understand why the documents say something different. Nobody moved. Nathan's face changed. Only slightly. But Lauren saw it. The same expression she had seen when she first asked about Schedule C. The court did not award Lauren Nathan's company. It did not declare her suddenly wealthy. It did not decide every issue involving the family trust that morning. Instead, the judge ordered expanded financial disclosure, preserved the disputed rights while the parties resolved them through the proper proceedings, and prohibited representations that Lauren had consented unless actual written consent existed. Simple orders. Devastating consequences. Nathan could still negotiate, still defend himself, still rebuild the transaction. But he could no longer control which facts reached the table. Outside the courtroom, reporters gathered behind a metal barrier. Lauren ignored them. Nathan emerged several minutes later, surrounded by attorneys. For one moment, their eyes met. There was no satisfaction on Lauren's face. That seemed to disturb him more than anger would have. Audrey pressed the elevator button. You okay? Lauren rested a hand over her daughter. Yes. The doors opened. She stepped inside. WT-17 had started as a tiny code Nathan assumed his wife had forgotten. But the real mistake had never been hidden inside a contract. It was believing that because Lauren had been quiet, she had stopped understanding. Nathan had spent years teaching her not to question what he put on paper. Now every important person in the room was questioning it for her. Before the divorce was finalized, Lauren and Nathan spent one long afternoon in a settlement conference that felt more exhausting than the courtroom. There were no dramatic accusations. The mediator moved issue by issue: property, support, the protected trust interest, legal fees, and a future parenting schedule for Lily. Nathan's company remained his company. Lauren's trust rights remained protected. The disputed collateral question was resolved separately, and Halcyon ultimately proceeded on revised terms after the required approvals were properly obtained. When the conversation turned to Lily, Lauren refused to use Nathan's treatment of her as a reason to erase him as a father. She wanted predictability, safe handoffs, and decisions centered on the child rather than on either parent's pride. Nathan wanted flexibility because of work travel. They compromised around actual schedules. At the end of the day, Nathan looked at Lauren across the table and said, "You could have made this much worse for me." Lauren considered the sentence. Months earlier, she might have heard gratitude. Now she heard surprise that she had chosen fairness when she had leverage. "I was never trying to make it worse," she said. "I was trying to know what I was signing." Nathan looked down at the agreement. For once, he did not argue. That silence did not repair the marriage, but it closed something inside Lauren that had remained open since her birthday. She left the conference carrying no sense of victory, only relief. Outside, winter sunlight reflected from the courthouse windows, and Lauren realized that peace felt different when it came from informed choices instead of silence. She was ready to begin again on her own terms. 1 year later, Lauren Whitmore received another envelope on her birthday. For 5 seconds, she simply stared at it. Not because she expected divorce papers. Not anymore. But some memories stay inside the hands long after the heart has learned to move forward. The envelope rested on a small kitchen table beside a vanilla cake with one crooked candle. Across from Lauren, Lily sat in her high chair, hitting a plastic spoon against the tray. Tap, tap, tap. Lauren laughed. "You have terrible timing." Lily answered with a delighted squeal. The house was nothing like the penthouse. No private elevator. No marble dining room. No skyline behind 40 floors of glass. Just warm sunlight, hardwood floors, toys beneath the sofa, and fingerprints on the kitchen window. Lauren loved it. Audrey Sloan sat beside the cake with 2 cups of coffee. "You going to open that?" Lauren touched the envelope. "Eventually. It's not from Nathan." "That helps." The divorce had been finalized months earlier. Not quickly, not beautifully, but fairly. The expanded financial disclosures ordered after the hearing exposed enough inconsistencies to force Nathan back to the negotiating table. Whitmore development survived. The Halcyon transaction eventually moved forward under revised terms after the collateral issues were properly reviewed and the necessary approvals were addressed. Nathan did not lose everything. Lauren had never wanted him to. But he lost something money could not immediately replace: control. For the first time, contracts connected to his empire were being examined by people he could not pressure into silence. Lauren received a fair financial settlement, protection of her trust rights, and a parenting arrangement centered on Lily's welfare. No secret fortune, no billionaire inheritance, no sudden revenge empire, just enough stability to begin again. And something more valuable: a life she had chosen herself. Lauren finally opened the envelope. Her eyes moved across the letterhead. Morrison and Hale Consulting. Audrey watched her expression. "What?" Lauren read the first paragraph again. Then the title: Senior Contract Analyst. Flexible schedule. 3 days in the office. Remote work available. Her throat tightened. They offered it. Audrey smiled. They offered it. Lauren looked at Lily. Years ago, Nathan had told her she no longer needed contracts. Then he had spent years convincing her that part of herself no longer mattered. Yet the skill he dismissed had become the very thing that helped her protect her daughter, her future, and her name. Audrey reached into her purse. One more birthday gift. She placed a narrow box on the table. Lauren opened it. A silver fountain pen. She stared, then laughed. "You're terrible. I considered a cream envelope too. Get out." Lily slapped her spoon against the tray again. Lauren placed the employment agreement before her. For a moment, another birthday returned. White roses. 20 guests. Nathan's voice. Just sign it, Lauren. She remembered how small she had felt, how badly her hands had trembled. Then she remembered WT 17. The elevator. Monday morning. The courtroom. Lauren uncapped the silver pen. Her phone vibrated. Nathan, happy birthday. I hope you and Lily are well. Lauren read the message. No anger arrived. No longing either. She typed, thank you. Lily is doing great. Then placed the phone face down. Nothing more was necessary. Lauren turned back to the agreement. Lily watched her with wide green eyes. This one, Lauren whispered, Mommy wants to sign. The pen moved across the page. Lauren Whitmore. Her name. Her decision. Her future. 1 year earlier, Nathan had turned his pregnant wife's birthday into a deadline because he believed her signature was simply another closing item. He learned too late that Lauren had never forgotten how to read the page, protect her name, or decide for herself. And this time, when she signed, nobody had to tell her where the line was.